I'm one to believe that if there are a couple connections to a story, it's probably a coincidence. But when there are many coincidences, it's no longer a coincidence. It's a cover-up. And some of you may have noticed that there are voices who are now speaking out, such as Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, who've stated in recent interviews they believe that Jeffrey Epstein was working for Israeli intelligence agency Mossad. I find it kind of interesting that they're now bringing this out and speaking on it, when many of us, to include myself, were speaking about this back in 2019, 2020. I wrote a blog post back in January 2020 called The Art of Sexual Blackmail, Epstein in Israel, and made the connections then. So this isn't new information. There's definitely a connection between Epstein and the Israeli government. And while we know he himself was a pedophile, he was a pedophile. He wasn't just blackmailing others and getting them into situations with minors to record them for blackmail. As Virginia Jeffries once stated in an interview, she said that she was being used to blackmail some of the most powerful people in the world.
I was trafficked to other billionaires. I was trafficked to politicians, professors, even royalty. It was the elite of the world. It was the people who run the world. It was the most powerful people in the world.
Why do you think Epstein did that to you?
He used me as a form of blackmail. So, these people would owe him favors. So he wanted to always have something on someone just in case he needed it.
So yes, he's blackmailing, but why? For Israel's interests. Well, what are Israel's interests? And if you don't understand the history of how Israel was formed, if you don't understand the history of false flag operations involving the Israeli government, the many times they have spied on our government, to include when Trump was in office the first time, which is sourced in my blog post, then you're not connecting everything. And the true connection to Jeffrey Epstein and what he was doing, his operation was going on in the 90s, by the way. It didn't start recently. This has been going on since the 90s. And it was actually stated by one of his victims. It was Maria Farmer. Maria Farmer had an interview with Whitney Webb, an independent journalist, and made it very clear that the news media would not report when she said that Jewish supremacy was deeply embedded in the sex ring.
And if people take people's, it's like they get hit with a soccer ball in the gut. I've told every news network, and they go, "Oh, we can't talk about that." Of course, you can't talk about the truth, right? You can, but most people just won't. And I think it's a huge part of it because this is a problem. This elitism is very deep. And these are the people pushing racism. These are the people pushing white. They're saying there's white supremacy, which maybe there is in some ignorant Southern hillbilly groups. But I don't know any white supremacists. But I know a lot of Jewish supremacists. They're all elites.
You see. Now, the other part of that story, which is also mentioned in my blog, is that Jeffrey Epstein had a painting of Bill Clinton in the blue dress, the Monica Lewinsky dress that you might be familiar with. And the Times of Israel, which is an Israeli news source, said there was a book that was critical of Bill Clinton that states that Israel was spying on Bill Clinton and his conversations with Monica Lewinsky. And they were trying to use that phone tapping as leverage in order to release Jonathan Pollard. Go look him up. Go look up the Apollo affair. Go look into the Kennedy assassination. Go look into the USS Liberty attack in 1967. Go look up the many false flag operations that Israel did to become a state and thereafter, such as the bombings in the 1950s in Iraq, against Jewish institutions in order to scare the Jewish population so that they could increase the population within their own state. Go look up the King David Hotel bombing, where they dressed as Arabs and bombed the hotel, killing many, including Jews. Go look up the Lavon affair. When you start putting everything together, and then when you dig into the 9/11 conspiracies, it becomes obvious that it was a Mossad operation. And if 9/11 was a Mossad operation, as I suspect and many others do as well, then Jeffrey Epstein was also used, and others were also used to silence those who they feared would come forward regarding that connection. It's much darker and deeper than most Americans would be able to acknowledge just by hearing someone say it. But when you see the videos of the leaseholder of the World Trade Center, Larry Silverstein, who was a Zionist Jew, who wasn't present that day, talking about Building 7.
7 burned until late afternoon, allowing occupants to evacuate to safety.
I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. And I said, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse.
Which was not hit by a plane that day and had fires. And that's the official story, that fires brought down that building. Go watch that building come down. And experts, architects and engineers have said that it was a controlled demolition and that it would have had to been prepared weeks or months in advance. Then you start digging a little deeper there. And then you start to notice the many Israeli connections, the Israeli art students, the dancing Israelis on September 11th. There are so many connections that point back to Israel and the fact that they've always wanted to expand their state. And General Wesley Clark, he was a 4-star general, stated in a 2007 Democracy Now! Interview that America had an objective to take out 7 countries in 5 years, just weeks after 9/11. And that was Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran. There you go. It's very obvious when you start to put everything together, and there's so many more connections. And I think it's about time for the American people to wake up before you end up like the Palestinians. You and me end up like the Palestinians.